Welcome to the Westcliff University podcast, where we explore revolutionary ideas that force us to rethink life, creativity, humanity, and the future. Today, I've got the privilege of interviewing one of the most fascinating and thought-provoking minds of our time, Derek Sivers. His ideas have deeply influenced me, and after reading nearly everything he's written, and after listening to his most compelling TED and TEDx talks and podcast interviews, I can confidently say this conversation is going to challenge the way you think just about everything. But before we dive in, if you'd like to learn about Westcliff University, including our incredible undergraduate athletic program, visit Westcliff University on our website, westcliff.edu, and on our social media platforms. I'm Dr. Barry Sandrew, your host on this journey. Now let's get into it. Derek Sivers doesn't just challenge conventional wisdom, he obliterates it. A musician turned accidental entrepreneur, he built CD Baby in 1998 into the world's largest independent music distributor. He changed an industry. He then gave his fortune away, $22 million, in an irrevocable trust to support independent artists. His ideas have influenced entrepreneurs, creators, and thinkers worldwide. His ideas always seem to defy logic, yet somehow they work. He's been called the George Costanza of entrepreneurship and life philosophy. We're doing the opposite of what seems rational often leads to success, happiness, and freedom. His thinking flips reality upside down, and I guarantee it will force you to question everything. So join me in welcoming Derek Sivers. Hey, Derek, how is it down under?
You know, it's funny. They never refer to New Zealand as down under. I don't know why not. We are equally down under as Australia, but things are wonderful. I like that it's the next day for me. It's Thursday morning for me now. Where is it?
I know.
Wednesday noon for you.
How's the future? Good?
We're still here.
Well, listen, as I said, this is a real treat for me because I've been following you for a couple of years, but for the past year, you've become sort of an obsession with me. I've read just about everything you've done, and I've listened to so many of your podcasts. They've been really great, especially, Chris, what's his name?
Williamson.
Yes, Williamson.
Yeah.
And Shanahy as well, Jim. That was excellent as well. But let's start by letting me ask you an establishing question so that the audience can get to know who you are. Most people spend their lives chasing more success, more money, more recognition. You built a multi-million-dollar company, changed an industry, then walked away and gave it all away permanently. That's not only unconventional, it's almost unthinkable. So let's start with this. What do you know about success, happiness, and freedom that the rest of the world keeps getting wrong?
No. I disagree with the question. It's just personal that different people have different values. And I've met people who really, truly want more and more and more, and it really does make them happy. The more they get, they actually, both shallow and deep, get happier. They get more fulfillment, they get more energized, they get more generous. They really do thrive having more and more and more. They want mansions, boats, employees, all of that stuff. They really, truly want it, philosophically, through and through. I just don't. And so I know from my own dive into myself and my own experiences in the past that I am happiest when I'm just left alone to create. I really like creating things, whether that's writing or programming or making music. I really like learning. And I don't like obstacles that get between me and those things. Having a mansion or a helicopter would be an obstacle between me and my reading and writing. So I don't want it. Having a team of employees that want things from me would be an obstacle between me and my reading and writing. So I just try to create the life that's best for me to thrive and flourish. But it's not like I've found the secret that other people need to know. Not at all. It's just, this is what works for me.
You know, in Tao, there's something called the Wu Wei, or Wu Wei, which is effortless action, going with the flow. And I think that pretty much sums up your entrepreneurial journey. I don't think you expected any of it. I know you didn't expect any of it, but you went with the flow. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I compare it less to the Tao and more to Forrest Gump.
I figure you might. Well, what I've learned, this morning I received an email from you basically telling me that I might have gotten some of your books wrong, and at least my interpretation of that. And that it didn't shatter me, but it put my obsession with you in a different perspective. And what I've realized is that you and I are about 180 degrees different in our perception of the world and life, but not completely. In fact, you're actually the goal that I've always been after, at least your life. So before we get into that, let's play a little game. I tried to capture the essence of each one of your books in one word. So I'm going to throw out each word to you. Let me know which book the word relates to, and if you think it's a proper fit, and why you think you'd like to have a different name, a different word, rather. One of them, as I said, I just found out was 180 degrees wrong. But let's give it a try anyway. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. Pragmatism.
Useful, not true.
Correct. But you also told Sharath during his podcast that you initially thought that was true, but you've changed. And it's not existentialism. What word would you use?
I think it might be a little closer to skepticism.
Why is that?
I'm no academic philosopher, clearly, but as I looked into pragmatism, and I'm talking about, with a capital P, that the school of philosophical thought that you can find a Wikipedia page about, not just the general approach to life, that it seemed to be defining true as whatever works. And if it works, it's true. Whereas my definition of true is almost nothing. It's just the concrete reality, the physical observables. I clapped my hands right now. That's true. But am I applauding for you or scolding for you? That's interpretation. All that we know is that my two hands made a sound together. That's true. Any interpretation of it is just a thought and not necessarily true. So I draw the line all the way at the far end of what I consider to be true. Only the things that an octopus and an alien and a machine would all observe it and agree. If it's that observable and that empirical, I call that true. Everything else I consider to be just a thought, which is never necessarily true, because I think my definition of true is it's true for everyone, everywhere, always, where almost nothing of the mind passes that test.
So someone who feels that they do have an idea that's truthful, that is the truth. It's really just a perception, a personal perception. Is that right?
For me, yes, by my view of the world, which might be skepticism, I'd say that any thought that you consider true, you could say, this works for me, or I like to think this, or whatnot. But if it was true, that means it's absolutely true for everyone, everywhere, always, and there is no other way to see it. That's true. That's just a fact. Otherwise, it's just a perception that there might be another way to see it. And the reason I'm defining it like this is not to be an annoying, pedantic nerd, but because what we consider true is fixed and closed and done. You cannot and will not see it in any other way. You will not open that up for discussion. It's closed. It's a fact, and that's that. I think it's more important to keep almost everything open for questioning and reconsideration and reframing, because there's almost always a better, more helpful, more useful way to see it. Or at least empathetically understand why other people could see it entirely differently. And neither one of you are wrong, because neither one of you is holding on to an absolute empirical observable truth. You're holding on to a perspective, and there are other perspectives.
Got it. I have another word to throw out.
Okay.
This one gets into quantum physics, believe it or not. Superposition.
Actually don't know that word.
Two things exist at the same time in the same place.
Oh, How to Live. Yay.
Right.
Is that How to Live? Yeah.
Yep. Yep. You think that's an accurate one?
Yes. Wonderfully.
Good. Finally hit one. But basically, How to Live is... What?
Pragmatism for useful, not true was very, very, very close. I think it's a fine distinction. I mean, I had to read 6 books on pragmatism before I started thinking, this isn't quite what I was trying to communicate. But it's very close. So you weren't completely wrong.
Well, good. All right. Well, I almost hit one. But How to Live is about, what is it, 27 contradictory philosophies about life.
Yeah.
That you present with equal certainty of correctness. Is that right?
Yeah. Each chapter thinks it has the answer to life, and each chapter disagrees with all of the other chapters.
Right. It's fascinating. Let me try.
I like it too.
Let me try a third one. Prioritization.
Hell yeah or no.
Correct. Why is that one correct?
That's exactly what it's about. It's How to Live. Sorry. Hell yeah or no is my book about what's worth doing, how to decide.
Right. And unless you can say
prioritization.
Unless you can say hell yeah, you usually should say no.
Right. Well, this is one thing that we emailed about, or that I wrote an email to you last night, is I had to clarify it. It's like, hold on, Barry. The whole book doesn't say this is the way, this is what you should all do. It just describes that this is a tool for a certain situation in life. When you're overwhelmed with too many good options, what most people do in that case is they continue to say yes to too much, and they spread themselves too thin. And then they don't do anything of deep, powerful impact because they don't have time to. They've spread themselves too thin by saying yes to too many things. And in that situation, my recommendation is to raise the bar all the way to the top so that you say no to basically everything, unless one thing comes along and makes you go, oh, hell yeah, that would be amazing. Because then, since you've said no to everything else, now you have time to throw your full energy and time into that one thing that made you say, hell yeah, because you've said no to everything else. It's a strategy for a specific situation when you're overwhelmed with too many good options. It's not meant to be used for everything, for life. And there's even a chapter in the book that says it's just a tool for a certain situation. And there's a chapter called, I think, Switch, where it says, early in your career, it's better to say yes to everything. You never know what the winning lottery ticket is going to be. So ideally, the more lottery tickets, the better. You never know what's going to hit. So say yes to everything. And then when something is very successful and rewarding for you, you double down on it. And if that one thing then becomes so overwhelming that you become flooded with recognition and attention and wonderful options and everybody wants everything from you, well, now it's the time to take the hell yeah or no approach where you raise the bar all the way up. It's not meant to be used for every situation.
Okay, I got 3. The next one is connection.
Your music and people.
And you've got a good example of this because when you were with CD Baby, the only thing that really mattered were your clients and connecting with them. And you had one instance where you actually created a viral moment. It was, I mean, you basically did very little marketing for the company, I believe. But there was one person who was asking when their CD was going to arrive. And you did something special. And it really meant a lot to that person. Do you remember that?
Are you talking about the squid?
No, the squid is another one.
Okay.
I'm talking about the one where you were with the with the gold case, the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that wasn't one person asking. That was just me setting up my e-commerce software so that it would send an automatic notification to everybody who buys something. You know, anytime you get something in an e-commerce store, you get the email notification like, okay, right, we've received your order. And then usually there's another one a day later that says, okay, your order has shipped now and here's the tracking number. So yes, way back in 1998, I had just launched my little store and it had been open for a week or two and I'd had a few orders. And I saw that every time somebody ordered a CD, which again was just a few times a week, they would get a boring little automatic email that said, your order has shipped. Thank you for your order. And here's your address. And I thought, oh, come on, I can do better than that. That's just putting some mundane noise into the world. Let me do something more interesting that might make somebody smile. So I took 10 minutes and just wrote this fanciful thing saying, your order has been picked with satin gloves and placed onto a gold pillow and put into a gold-lined envelope by our packing specialist from Japan. We lit a candle and a hush fell across the crowd as we all watched your CD go on to our private jet on its way to you this year. Oh, what a great time we've had today. Your photo is now on the wall as Customer of the Year. And we're all exhausted, but can't wait for you to return someday. So I just wrote this thing in 10 minutes, and I thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah, but it made it
automated.
It made a big impression, though.
Yeah. So a lot of people thought it was really funny, and they posted it on their blog. Yeah. They shared it with their friends, and it became a kind of viral marketing for its day.
But since you mentioned it, what about the squid?
Well, you got to understand the CD Baby workplace was 85 employees working at minimum wage, 55 of them just in the warehouse stuffing CDs, 25 in customer service answering phones and emails. It was mostly just a bunch of kids that, because it was minimum wage, people would just show up and like smoke pot with their friends and listen to music and just kind of rock out, put on their favorite tunes and stick CDs into envelopes. It was a very casual place to work. And we communicated that in all of the messaging to musicians. Like if somebody wanted a change to their account after they'd already paid, I'd say, so we're going to have to do all the work all over again. So if you want us to make a change, you got to get us a pizza. And they'd say, but are you serious? I'm like, yeah, here's the local pizzeria. If you want us to make a change, call the local pizzeria and have them send us a pizza. You send us a pizza, we'll make the change. And so it was in this spirit that somebody from Korea once, when sending their CDs to me to sell, included packaged squid in shrink wrap. And I think they put some other stuff in there too. And that just, the guys in the warehouse, when they got it, what are they like? Hey, dude, there's a squid in here. Cool. And they just tacked it up on the cool shit board of things that we'd received from musicians, including little pieces of gum and comic books and whatever people threw in their package for fun. And it sat on the wall for a few months until one day, a customer buying a CD at the end of the order had a box saying, any special requests, let us know. And so somebody in the little special request box said, yes, please include a squid with my order. A real squid would be ideal, but if not, a plastic squid will do. And the guys in the warehouse got this, looked at it and went, hey, dude, there's that squid on the wall. Let's send it to the guy requesting a squid. They took the squid down, they put it in there, and I think they tossed in some other fun stuff. And so the guy receives his package, and oh my God, it has a squid like he requested. And I think there was a note in there saying like, hey, love the CD Baby warehouse. Here's a squid. And he went on YouTube and made a video telling this story in front of a fireplace. And you can search YouTube for like CD Baby squid story. And here's a guy in front of a fireplace telling the story to his friends, and he posts it on YouTube and it gets shared around too.
Oh,
so I wasn't trying to be viral. I wasn't making content. I didn't even know it happened. People told me later. It was just the workplace lent itself to just silly fun things like that because, you know, we're not selling cybersecurity systems. We're just selling CDs. So
yeah.
Just
and it sounded like a fun place.
Record store.
Sounded like a fun place to work.
Yeah.
The last one is authenticity. And of course, you know which one that is. There's only one book left.
Huh. Anything you want?
Yep.
Authenticity? Huh.
And the reason I came up with that is because you were authentic in the early days. It sort of grew organically. And then it got so damn big, you started to realize it wasn't you. And like me, I went from Harvard to running a public company, startup, without any business education whatsoever. You also made every single mistake in the book, I believe. And you'll admit it. But that's also why you ended up leaving, correct?
Yeah.
This company was was rated as one of the best places to work. I think in Seattle or wherever it was.
Portland.
And
yeah.
You did where?
Portland, Oregon.
Portland, yeah. And but you were very hands off to a certain extent. Your employees would come in and say, "Hey, Derek, you know, we need a health plan," and you would say, "Oh, good, sure, find one. I'll take care of it, no problem." Then they come back and say, "Derek, we'd like to get a profit sharing plan." And you say, oh, it's good, fine. Yeah, just figure one out, get one that works, and I'll be okay with it. And I think then one of your accountants came to you a while back afterward and said, hey, Derek, do you realize your employees are taking all your profits? Did I get that right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, you were no longer the really good guy employer. You were an SOB who was taking stuff away. And it didn't become fun anymore, correct?
Correct.
And, after reading that book, I realized that you're human. Prior to that, I said, oh my God, this guy's amazing, what he did, But
but no longer.
No, it's better that you're human, frankly, because it adds a lot of texture to your background and everything. And I really appreciated that because, again, I'm not much different. I made all the mistakes in the work in the world as well. But I've been a successful serial entrepreneur for many decades. I've changed industries like you. I've done all of that. But I've been driven. I mean, to the point where I was never certain whether I was going to be homeless after the next check. And that's what drove me. But what I was searching for, my goal was to be where you are right now, to have enough that I would never have to work again unless I wanted to. Well, I've achieved that. But I can't, my algorithm is still there. So I've never been able to let go like you. And a lot of that came very clear to me when you sent me that email. It said, hey, you don't really understand. I think you're misinterpreting this book. And I said, I thought I had this figured out, but I didn't. And I don't think I would be able to live your life because I think that would be the end of my life because I have to be goal driven. But I think that might be simply because I'm on the spectrum. It's the way I live. This is the way my brain works. But I admire the way you're living.
Thank you. In your email, you had a question at the end where you asked, do I see myself as just retired and coasting now? And I was glad you asked that in an email because I was sitting at my computer and I could look at the folders on my computer where I keep my plans and everything. So I have a folder of the books that I've purchased that I want to read but have not yet read. And so I counted and there were 504 last night. And then I have a folder where I keep my future plans, where if there's something I really want to do in the future and I can't do it yet because I just don't have the time yet, I open up a folder in that folder and I spec it out. I write down all the detailed plans and how I'm going to do this thing, whether it's swimming with whale sharks in the Philippines or starting a foundation or learning Arabic or whatever it may be. I write down that plan in a folder called Futures. And these are things I want to do. And so I counted and there's almost 500 of them as of last night. That things I really want to do that are not yet done. And then I counted, what else? Emails. No, sorry, not emails. Articles. Articles that I want to write, I've started to write. They need more editing before I'm happy to publish them on my website. And I counted those, and there were over 1,100 of them that are started but not yet finished, not yet published. So when I think of my ambition, I do still have goals. I want to be fluent in Chinese. I want to be comfortable and feeling at home in every country or every part of the world, let's say. And And I want to write these 1,100 articles, and I want to read these 500 books, and I want to do these 450 plans. I really want all of it. So in that sense, I am the opposite of leisurely. You can't get me to hang out, shoot the shit, and watch TV with a beer. I don't do that. I don't sit around on couches. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning working on these things every single day, 7 days a week. The only exception, the only person that gets me to stop is my boy.
Son.
Yeah, and I was not planning on having a kid, but when I did have a kid, I reprioritized my life and just made him the top priority of everything. So he's at school right now, but as soon as he gets back at 3:35, everything's shut down, and I just give him my full attention until he falls asleep. And then I turn my computer back on and do my own stuff until he wakes up tomorrow morning and yells, "Dad." And then he gets my full attention again, and I shut down everything again. So that's my life. It's still goal-driven, but it's intellectual goals, creative goals, not financial goals.
Right. But that's because you don't have to worry about money.
Yeah.
If you didn't have that, I mean, if you still had to bring home a check, would you still be able to do any of those things?
Maybe not. I might have to make that my second priority then, and it might have to be only after I've done everything I need to do to make money today. Then I do the other stuff and write my articles and read my books.
Right. And then you'd be looking at Derek Sivers with a certain amount of obsession because he's got what you'd like.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that really impressed me about you, one of the many things, is your DIY attitude. You do it yourself. You created your own websites, everything. You basically did it the hard way, but because you wanted to have the control and understand all the technology behind things. And when you decided you wanted to go to Berklee School of Music, you ended up doing it in 2 years because of your DIY perspective. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. Hemo Williams, the music teacher that I met just a month before I went off to college. I was living in Chicago, and I called a music teacher in Chicago with a random question. And he said, "Well, why do you want to know?" And I said, "Well, because I'm going to Berklee College of Music next month." He said, "Oh, really?" He said, "I used to teach at Berklee College of Music." He said, "What are you going for?" And as we talked about it, he said, "Come by my music studio tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. He said, "I think I can help you graduate in 2 years." So I showed up at 9 a.m., which he said that, by the way, he uses that as a filter. He would often tell people that were curious or ambitious. So I show up at my studio at 9 a.m. and he said, nobody ever did. He said, so the next day, the way he tells it, he said, my doorbell rang and I had no idea who was ringing my doorbell at 9 a.m. And there's this white kid from the suburbs that came into downtown Chicago to my studio at 9 a.m. And that was Derek Sivers. So he gave me this crash course, but more important, a mentality where he said, the standard pace is for chumps. He said, the university, at least that one, is paced at a way so that the slowest students can keep up. He said, if you're more driven and you're more ambitious, you don't have to go at standard pace. What they're going to take 4 semesters to teach you, I think you can learn in a few hours if you're driven. And then you can go contact the head of the department, take the final exam without ever having taken the course, and you'll get credit for the course if you pass the final exam. It shows you've mastered the material. You know this. There's no need to sit in a room for a semester to get it. So in a few hours of instruction, he taught me a bunch of stuff about music theory and arranging and harmony and the basics of ear training, so much so that when I showed up to my entrance exams at Berkeley a month later, I tested out of maybe 4 classes just like that he had taught me, like 4 basic requirements. And then using his methodology, I went and got the course book for the other required classes, did them in my spare time at night, and then took the final exam and got the credit for the courses. So doing this, I was able to graduate in, it was 2.5 years because I had to do a few classes over a summer semester. So in 2.5 years, I graduated Berklee College of Music and had my bachelor's degree at age 20 and moved to New York City.
Given that background, how would you, if you were going to start a university, what would it be like?
So preface to say, I haven't set foot in a university since 1990. I have no idea what it's like anymore. But if you're asking my naive, dummy, Derek approach, then I like the idea of a school of mastery, with the idea being that you can learn anything you want to learn online. It's a different world than when I was going to college in 1987, where it felt like the knowledge that I wanted was in this building. Now it's like the knowledge you need is everywhere. It's online, it's free. But people need an environment where they can go to get away from their day-to-day duties and have a special place that gets you into a special mindset of like, I'm going to this place to learn. So let's say you set up a place, or maybe a couple places, whether it's in Montana or Eastern India or Western China, a place that somebody can go to get away from their regular life and come with a very clear mission. Like, I'm here to learn, nothing else. I'm here for the next period of time, whether it's 2 years or 4 years, to completely focus. My sole purpose in life is to get great at this thing, and then be around a bunch of other students that are in that same mentality and same driven mindset. But then what you're studying can all be gleaned from online, the information you need. So what I think you need then is coaches, people that are like personal trainers or life coaches that are going to be there to help you stay focused, help you get past your hurdles, and help you in learning how to learn, which is a beautiful course by Barbara Oakley, I think it's her name. She wrote a book called A Mind for Numbers and has a course, I think it's on Coursera.org, called Learning How to Learn. It's just the craft of learning in itself, whether it's things like spaced repetition or practicing focusing, turning off distractions. These things could really use some guidance. So imagine if you go away off to middle of nowhere in India and you're there at the School of Mastery with a bunch of other students, whether it's studying architecture or chemistry or whatever it is. You got your fast internet connection, but you're around other people that are focused and learning and ignoring their obstacles and giving things their full attention. That would be Derek's university.
Have you ever heard of Summerhill, A.S. Neal?
Yes. In fact, it's funny that you mentioned it because I just saw a little video about it like 2 days ago.
It's very similar to what you're describing. It's basically, the philosophy is that children are naturally curious. And if you provide them with a situation where they have all the resources they need and all of the topics that they might be interested in working with and learning about, they will gravitate toward that. And if somebody was interested in woodworking, there's really no reason for them to have to study biochemistry.
Right.
Very similar. You agree?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I want to move on to something contemporary that's really influenced a lot of people. It certainly influenced me a lot because this is my next startup. AI. And I wanted to find out, would you ever consider co-writing a book with AI?
I often yes, I often turn to these LLM tools to help me find a word or a phrase in a way that a dictionary or even thesaurus just can't. Like I'll say, what's a word that means this? And I'll describe it in a sentence. And it will say, here's a list of 5 words that match what you're asking. And I'll say, oh, what's the difference between word number 2 and 3? Those to me sound like the same thing. What's the etymological difference between them? And it will tell me the distinction. I'll say, word number 3 is what I wanted. Great. So I do already use LLM tools like that. I would never just have it generate the words for me, because that to me is a betrayal of trust with the reader that they're reading something by me. If I say this book is by Derek Sivers or this article is by Derek Sivers, it's me writing it. I might have looked up a word in an LLM the same way that people look up words in a dictionary or thesaurus, or even that a book often has an editor that comes by and suggests changes. I might do it like that, but I would never have the LLM generate the writing for me unless I were to specifically say, hey, everybody, here's a new book written by Claude as prompted by me. Maybe you want to read what Claude AI says on the subject of things I questioned it. Then we're being open and transparent and honest. And I could say, Claude wrote this book with my assistance. And if people wanted to read what Claude had to say when prompted by me, that's great, they can do that. But I'd be really clear it was not me that wrote this.
Got it. There's been a lot of controversy about AI and plagiarism. One of my future guests in April is, May actually, is Kirby Ferguson. Have you ever heard of him?
Mm-mm.
Well, he did a YouTube video, basically is a documentary called Everything is a Remix. It might be worth looking at because he does a masterful job showing that really there's very little that's original.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, this comes up in music a lot, of course, that if I write a song, I know that I got this little melodic snippet from this Beatles song, and I'm using the kick drum pattern from a Prince song, and I'm using the layering of instruments from a Talking Heads song, and I mix these 3 together in a way with some words that I read from a Nietzsche book and my reflections on it, and I put out that song, and people say that's a unique song by Derek Sivers. But I know where the ingredients came from, but still I muxed them into something new. But I can tell you where they come from. A lot of people don't always know where their influences come from. They just go by instinct. They put some sounds out that sound right, or they put some words out that sound right. I usually know where my influences come from, maybe because I take so many notes. I keep everything very documented in text files, so I'm very aware of the source of things. But yes, I strongly agree that everything's a remix.
Right, and that's a derivative work.
Yeah.
It's basically what I used to do with colorization. But it is a controversial thing because, that cat I drew 10 years ago that I posted has been scraped, and somebody who is creating a cat with ChatGPT as an image may have used that cat. And some people think they owe me money.
I like the word release in the sense that we release a new album, you released a book.
Yeah.
You got to let go. It's out in the
exactly.
world. It's nice that you can make some money from it, but it belongs to the world now.
That's right.
Kind of like the Khalil Gibran poem about your children are not your children, they are of the world. I think that applies to any creative work that you release.
I have a question about happiness and meaning. Is happiness to you a goal or a side effect?
Side effect. You make decisions that, based on your past decisions, are likely to lead to you being happy. But it's not always the end goal. And also, it's a dangerously loaded word that has so many depths or non-depths of meaning. So happy can be just eating an ice cream cone, or happy can be deep pride in yourself for being fit because you didn't eat the ice cream cone. And both of these words could mean happy. I think for that deeper one, it's maybe less confusing to call it fulfillment. So usually I'm aiming for something closer to fulfillment, and I discount the shallower levels of happy, which is why, if it seems weird to you that I don't spend time hanging out with friends and seem to be a workaholic, it's because I'm pursuing the deeper fulfillment of deep happiness, being proud of myself for having made the thing I wanted to make or lived the life I wanted to live.
You are living the way you would like to live. You're traveling all over the world. I know you recently went to Dubai and India, and you love it there. In fact, you might even move to India.
Yeah.
Is there anything you've sacrificed to live this way? I mean, you're creative. You're able to do virtually anything you want. You give podcasts, you write, you travel, you meet people.
I don't think I sacrificed anything.
Anything.
No, even when you mentioned at the beginning that I gave all the money from selling CD Baby and gave it all to charity or put it all into a charitable trust, that was also not a sacrifice, because I just took a clear look at the situation and realized I'm never going to use that money for the life that I want, knowing in advance I do not want a mansion, I do not want a Ferrari, I do not want a boat. I can't predict me ever using that $22 million. I just don't and won't need it. So therefore, instead of taking the $22 million, paying $7 million in taxes on it, and then having $15 million just sitting in my bank account, distorting my perception of value, I'd rather just not have it at all. There are people in the world that need that money. People that are dying and destitute and need it. What kind of fool would I have to be to hoard it for myself, like the dragon in The Hobbit, just sitting on my pile of gold? For what? It would make me more deeply happy to know that that money was going back out to people that really need it. And so that's why I set up the sale so that the money never even touched my hands. I just transferred my company into a charitable trust first before I sold it. And then the purchasing company bought it from the charitable trust. So the entire $22 million went into the charitable trust. That made me more deeply happy knowing I was living in alignment with my values. And
you're helping other artists.
Because
you're helping other artists.
And it made me happier to know that I was not sacrificing anything.
Yeah. For the audience, I want to go a little deeper into your minimalism. Tell me about your new house.
Well, I'm going to go see it this afternoon to see how it's progressing. I bought a couple 4x8 meter cabins that are just empty rectangles with the idea of living in them first and then deciding what they need. So instead of people decking out a house full of predictions, I'm following the philosophy from a Stuart Brand book called How Buildings Learn, where he said, all buildings are predictions and all predictions are wrong. Therefore, the best way to live in a house is to start living in it and make it adapt to your actual needs instead of your predicted needs. So that's what I'm doing. Just going to start living in this 4x8 cabin, and then while spending time there and doing what I do, I'll see if it needs a kitchen inside, and if it needs a bathroom inside, and if it needs a window here or whatever it may be. Then I will have those things done only after I know that I really need them.
Very good. I want you to jog my memory a little bit because I don't remember the context, at least most of it. I'm going to give you a little cue. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 1.
Oh. Fela Kuti, West African music. It was at least explained to me in college music school that in West African music, the 1 is the end of the musical phrase. Instead of in most of our European-based music, we think of it as the beginning of the musical phrase. We think 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whereas in West African music, at least, I heard that the musical phrase is thought of as 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. And that makes a little sense musically, but I thought it was more interesting when looking at the music career of Fela Anikulapo Kuti, which was the most famous West African musician from Nigeria. Now his son is somewhat famous, named Femi Kuti. But Fela Kuti was this innovator. He was kind of like the James Brown of Nigeria, except very politically outspoken, musically innovative. I love his music. But it was interesting to notice that he would get some songs together and tour the world, performing these songs live before ever recording them in the studio. And then only at the end of the tour, then they would go into the recording studio and record the songs that they had been performing live all year. Whereas for most musicians, it's the opposite. They first go into the recording studio and record an album full of songs, and then they go tour the world performing those songs that they've already recorded. So I thought, isn't that interesting? It's kind of like starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, versus 2, 3, 4, 1. Perform live, perform live, perform live, record it. Versus record it, perform live, perform live, perform live.
Got it.
Which I'm realizing just now is saying this to you, stand-up comedians do it like Fela Kuti. They take some material and go out on the road and play it and play it and test it and test it. And then only after they've really perfected it and they feel like, all right, I think I nailed it, then they record it and it becomes a stand-up comedy album. I say album, but you know what I mean, a recording.
I'm going to ask you a question that I know you likely will feel a little bit uncomfortable answering. What would you like to be remembered for? Do you have a legacy?
Not uncomfortable at all. In fact, I was writing my will right up until we started recording this morning. Remembered for? I don't care that much, but I like to get a good value out of my actions, meaning if I'm going to do something like this conversation, I'm putting more effort into this conversation because I know it's going to be recorded and shared. Whereas if it was just a one-time conversation that's going to disappear over a drink at a restaurant, I wouldn't be putting quite as much effort into it. Knowing that it's going to carry on recorded and that somebody can listen to this years from now makes me put more effort into it. So similarly, I do that with my writing. I try to set it up in such a way that it's going to stay public on my website forever. Now LLMs can ingest it into these AI engines and put it into their vector databases so that it's in there in its collection of words forever. I like that a lot. How I want to be remembered, I think just for the public things that I created and put out there. I put things out to leave my legacy. My legacy is my website of words and recordings like this.
Yeah, and I think some of your TED lectures or TEDx lectures are also part of your legacy. One of them that I really enjoyed was, I think, the one you did in Taiwan about the secret of life.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that one, the best performance of it was to a room of drunk computer programmers in an island off of Western Ireland, and nobody recorded it. But that was the best performance of that talk. I wish that was recorded. That was amazing. And then TEDx Taipei asked me to give that talk again. So I did, but the crowd there was the wrong crowd. I was trying to get them to stand up and sing and they wouldn't, and it was embarrassing. So to me, that was a flop of a performance. But the point I was trying to make in that talk, I later refined into the How to Live book and one of the chapters in Useful Not True called Life is _ fill in the blank. So I finally put that into writing.
Yeah, so I see threads from your book, from talks you gave in 2014, at least 14 years ago. So it was nice to see where it all came from and gelled into a book. It's one of the things I would suggest for the audience. Go on YouTube and put in Derek Sivers as a search. There's a wealth of really entertaining stuff there, especially aside from his podcast, especially when he's giving his presentations, his TEDx presentations. Some of them are very, very, very funny. You're a great entertainer.
All of that stuff. Thank you. All of that stuff is in one spot on my website. If you go to Sivers/I, you can see all 240 something interviews I've ever done, all archived and recorded there. And if you go to Sivers/presentations, you can see all of the presentations I've ever done, some of which are not on YouTube. In fact, I think my best one was for a conference called the World Domination Summit that I did in 2017 or so. And it's not on YouTube, but it is archived on my website.
Oh, I'm going to check that out for sure.
Yeah. I try to make it so that my website has everything. So YouTube could go out of business tomorrow and I could still have the archive of all the important stuff.
Yeah. And in your books, I've read all 5 of them, and I really feel that anybody who purchases one of your books, which, by the way, all of the proceeds go to charity, but if anyone purchases your books and they don't listen to your audiobook, which you do yourself, I think that they're missing out at least 35% of the message, because your presentation is so entertaining. In particular, as I told you, the person who I thought was your daughter.
Oh, right. Yeah, I hired a Scottish voice actress. I had this fun idea of chapter announcement, chapter 3, chapter 38. Instead of me saying chapter 3, chapter 38, I thought, wouldn't it be fun if somebody with a funny accent came on and did it in a silly way? And so I hired this voice actress to make a bunch of recordings of herself saying like, chapter 22, chapter 25. and just being silly with it. And she did maybe 4 recordings of each chapter number, and then I edited them together.
It was so engaging. I just loved it because in my mind, it was your 7-year-old daughter sitting on a stool taking cues from you. And then once you told me that it was an adult, I looked her up and sure enough, she's an adult. So now whenever I listen to it again, if I go through it, I hear a little bit of maturity in there. It kind of destroys that image.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. But then you also put some music in some as well as separations.
Yeah.
Did you create that music yourself?
Yeah, that was just me playing some guitar chords.
That's what I figured. That's what I figured. Well, we know where to find your stuff. This has been really a masterclass in thinking differently, as I knew it would be. I did ask you to think about this, and I know what your answer is going to be, and I think it's pretty much what I thought it would be, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you could leave our audience with 3 takeaways from this conversation, 3 ideas that might be transformative, what would they be?
I don't know. It depends. Like any album of music, different people are going to have their different favorite songs. Any book, different people are going to have the different quotes that reached them, that little sentence that changed your life that somebody else thinks is stupid and not interesting. For some reason, that sentence reaches you in a profound way and makes you make different choices. We never know what ideas we put out there are going to hit people. There are things that I've put out in the world that I thought were amazing. I was like, oh, just wait till the world hears this. This is going to knock them out. And I release it, crickets. Nobody seems to care. And there are other things that I whimsically whip out in 5 minutes that people say, oh my God, that's amazing. Oh, that changes my life. So you never know what people are going to be left with. So after about 10 minutes of thinking about it, I finally decided that I have no idea what your takeaways from this conversation will be. But please email me. I really like getting emails from strangers. I like meeting people. I'm living on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. This is my connection to the world. So go to my website and email me and introduce yourself.
And you do.
To hear what you like. Yeah, I reply to every single one. I enjoy it.
Yeah. I think every day you said you spend about an hour or more answering emails. Yeah. That's great. I hope the audience does.
Me too.
Well, Derek, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time for this podcast and sharing a little bit of yourself. And I hope the audience
really appreciate your attention and, as you called it, obsession. It's really flattering and really, really touching. Sometimes it feels like I'm putting stuff out into the void without an echo. And so it means a lot to me when I hear somebody that really was affected by it. So thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. And it's going to continue. I'm going to continue reading everything that you put out. So thanks again. I want to tell you a little bit about purposefulbuying.org. It's entirely managed by our smart capstone students. The platform sells Nepalese products, with all proceeds going to Pahar Trust, a 30-year-old charity that's building schools in many of the most remote villages in Nepal. Check out purposefulbuying.org. Let me tell you about our upcoming speaker, Aubrey de Grey, the man redefining human lifespan. Let me ask you a question. What if aging isn't inevitable? What if it's just a disease, one we can actually cure? Dr. Aubrey de Grey has spent his career challenging everything we assume about growing old. His groundbreaking work in regenerative medicine and longevity science suggests that we may be on the brink of achieving escape velocity for aging. That's where medical advancements extend life faster than time takes it away. Is radical life extension science fiction, or an impending reality? Join us April 24th to find out. In closing, I want to thank our podcast audience and let you know that each of you will be receiving an email that includes a brief survey. So please take a few minutes to fill it out because it helps us improve these podcasts for the future. You'll also get information where you can reach Derek and purchase his books. All proceeds from his books go to charity. Thanks, Derek. This was amazing. Goodbye.